So, John, we no longer need to refer to you as blind.
Um, you know what? I'm not sure about that, only because, um, you know, I still am at the intuitive level, and sometimes I see lines, like when I'm doing this practice, sometimes I can kind of make out lines and silhouettes, and other times it's still a little bit more at the knowing level.
Ah,
Um, it kind of depends on the day that I'm having and what else is going on in my life. Um, but here's what I would say. I would say that I'm increasingly becoming aware of visual things around me. So, in other words, I still would say that I'm blind, but at the same time, I'm gradually becoming aware of what's in my environment and what's around me and I'm first of all, I'm becoming aware that I am seeing something. And then as I do, I'm able to ask people around me if I point in the general direction and give a general explanation of what it is I think I see, they can help me pinpoint what it is I'm actually looking at. So what I would say is more accurate is that I'm slowly gaining visual knowledge, if that makes sense. But just like the person with a jigsaw puzzle, when you first take a jigsaw puzzle out of the box, you don't really know which pieces go where. And as such, it's like you kind of try and pick out certain pieces that might fit together for the time being until you find other pieces that fit better. I look at this as putting together a jigsaw puzzle.
excellent. Here it is Saturday, and on Thursday, I was blown away with the cards you were getting. Like, I think there was the Jack of Hearts or Jack of Diamonds, and there was the Ace of Diamonds, and you got those exactly, John.
That's right. Yep. And that was cool, but that was really cool, in fact. And I had also gotten the number of the dice. Now, just to give you some input on how things are changing for me, the dice, when it came up, I got four little pinpoints of light in my mind's eye to know that it was a four. But the card was interesting because I did get some visual feedback. If it's diamonds, it was red, so I got the red feedback, and I kind of got that visual, but I also got that with the tactile sense of my hand tingling, and then the 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 um the jack. I kind of knew that a little bit more at an intuitive level. So it's interesting because certain aspects of objects I get visual feedback about, and then other aspects I get just the intuitive feeling, oh yeah, that's right, it's a jack. Or, oh yeah, the mallet that you showed. Um, the roughness I could feel with my hands, when we were remote viewing. And I find that's kind of common even when you have things in the screen, there'll be associated feelings with it, tactile or otherwise. And that's fine because, I'm just trusting the input that my body, my higher self is giving to me.
Excellent. Pardon me. And so, John, this is pretty cool because, to get to the advanced level, seeing the room in real time, we have to go through the intuitive level. And you're going through the intuitive level right now. And in time, you'll actually be seeing like through a window, just like a sighted person. And it'll start, typically with very small windows. Many people describe them as a pea-sized window, and they'll get one or more of them and they'll get bigger and they'll join together. They kind of start off looking like Swiss cheese and get bigger. They join together until you've actually got a vision window. And I know of other folks that are blind that operate this. And some say that, by the evening they get a little tired with it and it doesn't work as well, but they use it during the day to navigate around their environment, to do the things around their house, to go to the store and buy things. And it's a very valuable ability that we actually all have. And in your case, it's really going to help you big time as this opens up more and more.
Well, and it already is, and I'm noticing it at times too, because I have astigmatism in my left eye, and traditionally, I've not seen any light really out of it. And I've noticed multiple times now when looking, I was talking on the phone yesterday as the sun was coming up, and I looked, toward the left side of my couch, and I was able to see the sun. I was like, wait a minute, my right eye isn't. I'm not facing this, the right side of my head is not facing the sun here, but I can see it anyway. And so I've already noticed where light looks different than it used to at times. But what's interesting is that at other times, the light looks a little bit darker than normal too. Most of the time, it looks brighter, but sometimes it looks a little bit darker. And so that's why I kind of look at this as a jigsaw puzzle because it exists and it's very real, but it's just, the mindsight will sometimes play games too. Um, and it's kind of interesting too, Rob, because, um, you're talking about opening the windows and things. What's kind of neat is, um, sometimes when I do see a silhouette of an object, I'll see part of it, but I'm not entirely sure how to know if I'm seeing the full object or not. And that's where, I'm in situations where in practice, I'll point out to you, hey, I see this particular part of an object. Um, and people will tell me, okay, you're looking at the top left of the object, or okay, you're looking toward the center middle. And if I get those feedback, if I get that feedback, then I can kind of try and see if I can see anything else around the part of it that jumped out to me. So it's kind of interesting to say the least, but I have no doubt that, this will continue to improve.
Yeah, and John, based on my own experience too, when I started into this, I think it's close to 8 years ago now. Yeah, and when I was at the intuitive level, it's a very similar experience to what you're saying. I would get most of the time, I would get just part of the object. And so we describe it as almost as if you're looking through a paper towel tube. And when you scan around, you catch part of the object. So typically, sometimes I would see the full six pattern on the dice. Sometimes I would only see part. And I would say, well, it's running at an angle. So even though I'm only seeing two of the three dots, because it's at an angle on the square or cube, I would say, well, then that has to be the three. Or I would see
Ah,
part of the six pattern of dots on the dice, and only the six has that specific pattern of the way they lay the dots on the actual dice. So I guess that's where, unfortunately, the left brain jumps in and extrapolates and says, well, then that's obviously the six. Or, I would get letters and numbers also where I would see part. And, or, for doing the symbols, I would see 1/4 of a circular line. And it's like, well, then that has to be the open circle because it would just normally continue around and join on the other side. Or I would get, you take two lines and you put them together at a right angle, I would only get the two lines. And it's like,
yeah,
well, gee whiz, the only thing that matches that would be the open square.
yeah,
So I exactly feel what you're saying because I went through all of that. And then of course, the intuitive level is very sort of hazy, it's very nebulous, it's very sometimes it's more sharper than others. Sometimes it leaves things out, and you've really got to kind of deduce, well, what am I actually seeing? So when we're in the process now of overlap where you're going to be opening up your seeing windows, and that level, the advanced level, is very exact. There's no interpretation there at all. It's kind of like with a sighted person with their eyes. What you're seeing is what is out there, and you're going to be transitioning to that. Now, you'll continue to have your mindsight level. Like typically, if you close your eyes, that's when it can
mhm,
operate more. But in reality, the two will overlap. But what will be really useful for you is when you're able to open up your actual seeing in real time. So it'll be 1-to-1, which is with what is actually out there in your visual field or in your surroundings. And
And
that's
so I
really
just thought of
cool.
something, Rob. Since we are just kind of riffing here and we're impromptu, you'd ask me if we can, if maybe I should no longer refer to myself as blind. For right now, I refer to myself as having perhaps a blind person with an extra tool.
Ah,
It's not enough to replace the fact that I have to have tactile marks on my oven and my microwave. It's not enough to replace the fact that sometimes I have to use my hands to look for objects on the counter. But it is an extra tool and very useful at that, for determining sometimes if there's an object and I'm looking for it and I see something on the corner of my eye, oh, okay, it's over here. Or sometimes if I get a hit on where something is, oh, it's right there. I look at it as I still function as somebody with limited vision, but I very much can use this as a tool, and I very much am open to the possibility of it getting better, or of it improving. And I think that's really going to be important if you use this video for other prospective people who are blind or visually impaired, because it doesn't change overnight, and it doesn't, grow from zero to being like completely, functional. At least it hasn't for me in just one session. But at the same time, so I don't want to overemphasize its value, but I also don't want to, I don't want to downplay it either. And so I, like you, Rob, am looking for the words here and looking for the ways to explain it.
exactly. And what you may notice, and once again, everybody's different, John. The path that you are on is unique to you. Okay, there are similarities and can be similarities between other folks, whether they're blind, visually impaired, or sighted. And I can only explain about personal experience I've had with myself, and I can give you anecdotal accounts I've heard from other people. But what I have noticed also, what can happen with your two mindsight levels, your intuitive level and your advanced level, you can have flashes happen of your advanced level, where all of a sudden you will see the room. You'll see the room and everything in it, and then it's gone. You could have things like that happen. So I'm very happy that you're kind of keeping an open mind because we don't want to pigeonhole it and say, well, it's going to happen like this for me, or it's going to happen like that. The truth is,
Well, and
oh,
and to that end, Rob, I did have that experience about a week ago now where I had just woken up and because I like to sleep on my side, I had my hand near my face. I like to put my arm under my pillow to support my head. And so I moved a little bit and I had my hand in front of my face and I thought I saw like a shadow or something. So I just kind of moved my fingers and I was like, oh, okay, I can tell there's movement there. And it was interesting because I could see where each one of my fingers was. Now, I couldn't see my fingers in detail, but I could see each one of them individually as objects. And I could, when I like, did this with my fingers, just kind of clenching them like you do when you wake up, and I would do this, I could see that all happen. And of course, that's better. I use the word better. Um, that's more than I usually see. So certainly I've had those flashes too, where things all of a sudden look very different than what they previously did. I've had those flashes.
excellent. Now, John, for the benefit of people that are watching this, can you just give a baseline? Explain prior to all of this what your normal seeing ability, your visual ability was.
Yeah, so the best way to explain this would be that to a fully sighted person, if you were to simply close your eyes, that would be about the equivalent of what I could see. Now, you'll notice that when your eyes are closed, you can see light and dark. You can generally tell which direction light is coming from, but you really cannot see any really thing other than light and dark. Some people are able to make out blurry shapes and shadows. That's a little bit more than what I have. The only time I could see a shadow is if something was about, oh, I don't know, 3 to 6 inches away from my face. And even then, it only looked like a darker spot. It looked like a darker, just indecipherable spot. And now with this, I've noticed that at times. I'm able to tell and see shadows from further away. Even, when I don't wear my mask, it kind of overlays my sight sometimes. And it's also the case where if I look at objects like a Coke can, I'm able to tell the lighter and the darker areas of that object where like the big Coke logo is and things. Um, so it absolutely has increased my, I mean, I was sitting in my parents' house the other evening and I was looking from the right side of the room. I was looking up and a little bit to my left where the windows and the door was, and I saw a dark line that I had not seen before, and I pointed it out to my mom, and she lowered the shade, and lo and behold, I was actually seeing the bottom of the shade when it was put up so it wouldn't block the window, and that would not have been possible um, with my normal visual acuity. And I think part of it is just awareness too. Like now that I'm aware that I can actually see more, I'm starting to pay attention to it and I'm not dismissing when something looks different, I actually investigate it now. Whereas before, when I didn't have this vision without eyes and I wasn't working on my intuition and whatever, I might have just thought that the light got a little darker. I wouldn't have really paid much attention to the limited visual input that I could have been receiving.
Excellent. Now, John, some of the folks who've been watching the videos where you're practicing and so on have made comments and they've said, well, if John is blind, why is he wearing a mask?
Because it's hard for me to tell where my original eyesight ends and mindsight begins. And it's tough because sometimes, when I use my eyes, so to speak, I cannot always tell if my eyes are giving me the feedback or if my intuition, my third eye, my mind sight is giving me the feedback. And so as a result of that, um, I want to eliminate my regular eye's ability to see light, because then I get an idea for how strongly my mind sight is open at the moment, and I get an idea of, okay, you know, this is what I'm really seeing, and I can work with it accordingly. Now, if I had my regular sight overlaying that, um, I'm sure I would be able to see things, but for me, there's a little bit of a mental block there about how much am I actually seeing with my real eyes versus how much is my mind sight working. And, you know, I guess it shouldn't matter because in real life, I don't go around wearing a blindfold. I just kind of utilize however it shows up. I utilize the visual input. But for the practice that we're doing here, I want to take advantage of the time to actually sharpen the mind sight itself.
Well, John, that makes sense. I mean, you're the guy that's learning this, and so you have the right to learn in whatever way feels right for you. And if wearing a mask is helpful or a tool to help you delineate between what light is coming through your natural eyes versus what's coming through the mind sight, then by all means, operate that in any way you want, for sure.
Well, and realistically, Rob, I mean, skeptics are going to say whatever they say, right? I mean, unfortunately, when people hear the word blind, they think of having absolutely no clue what light is whatsoever. They think of like, pitch black darkness. And that's really just not how it works for blind people. I mean, there's legally blind, and then there's more blind than that, where functionally you just have light perception, and then there's blind like, completely pitch black blind. And, I would say that it's very rare for people to be fully unable to perceive any kind of light whatsoever. So that's why I wear the mask.
Excellent. And John, can you talk about um, what you already knew in terms of seeing colors, reading or seeing letters, or understanding the letter system, the number system versus Braille? Can you let me know where you were and what is happening now, like how that learning is transitioning based on what you've been experiencing with the mindset?
Right. So I think this is where things get, you know, first of all, I am an avid Braille reader. I learned the Braille letters and numbers in kindergarten, and I've been reading ever since. I'm very fortunate for that because it got me through law school. And, uh, make sure I have a Braille display on my computer, so I make sure I'm spelling coworkers' names correctly. Um, but I did know generally the shape of some print letters, but because we played with alphabet blocks and stuff as kids, but it wasn't something that I saw every day or that I really focused a lot of my attention on. And what I would say now is I have to my right a little play set. It's like an alphabet letter board. It looks like this, and oh, there's the X. Um, but as I have gotten used to playing with the letters and picking them out, um, I'm sort of getting a better idea of what they look like visually. And as a result of that, I'm sort of able to when I do see lines and things like that, I'm sort of able to get a general ballpark of what a letter should be or what a letter is similar to. And you can see that when you go back to practice too. You can see that, the M and the W, I've picked the W when it's an M, or you've seen things where, I've picked out the K, for example, when it's a Y. Um, you can see that I'm getting part of the letter and I'm sort of in the ballpark now of what the proper letter should be. Because I have a better ability, you know, to imagine what these letters feel like. And I will say, some blind people, they probably did spend more time playing with the print letters. Um, they probably, um, and others they might be in my boat where we were told growing up that our alphabet was Braille, that basically that's what we were going to be reading. And what I always told myself is, well, I can play with these alphabet blocks, but if I'm never going to actually have a way to actually read them, tactily or otherwise, it was just a curiosity to me rather than something that I needed to put a whole lot of um, stock in. That having been said, I do know how to write some of the print letters. I was taught how to sign my name in cursive. I was taught how to, generally I can make the shape of some of the simpler letters. But that is certainly something that I am paying and being more mindful of now that I have the vision without eyes. And color, let's talk a little bit about color, because you know the traditional knowledge is that you cannot teach, a blind person cannot really sense color in a visual aspect. And I will say that for color, for me, it depends on the day. There are some days when I don't see anything visually, but I get different senses throughout my body for color. It's like having synesthesia, where for me, it manifests tactily. So normally, Rob, it would be red would tingle my palm like this. Um, Orange would tingle like through my wrist,
Mhm.
almost like this bottom part of the wrist, like if you have like carpal tunnel, it's like this part. Um, Yellow would tingle either my middle arm or it would be a flash of light. Green is up here on my shoulder, and blue is here on my elbow, like uh and so that's why sometimes during practice you'll see me put my hand into the frame like this, because what I'm doing is I'm pointing my hand at my screen, and I find that when I am able to put my hand over the thing that I want to know the color of, I get a better tactile feel for it. But there are other times in where I'm able, like, and especially in Orlando when I did this, there are other times where I was able to see colors in terms of light. But this is where I liken it to a person with a jigsaw puzzle and trying to put the pieces together, because I had a recently I was playing around with an app that we use on my phone, and it would tell me what color I was looking at. But what was weird is orange all of a sudden seemed very bright to me, whereas before it had seemed dim or dark. And so I had asked a question on the WhatsApp group and I said, is orange actually bright? And people had said, well, yeah, that's a very bright orange that we use in our. I said, but that looks somehow brighter than green. How can that be brighter than green? I'm used to thinking of colors in terms of like, okay, The red is the lower end of the spectrum with the least amount of energy. And then orange is slightly more energy. The wavelength has more energy than that. Yellow has more than that. Green has more than that. And blue has the most. So logically, from somebody who's never actually seen color, it would make sense that it would get brighter and brighter and brighter as you go up the spectrum. But in fact, I found that blue was darker than orange in this game. And I didn't actually see it the way that it was until very recently. And so that's what I mean about putting together a jigsaw puzzle. Before, I had seen colors visually, but my mind was giving me the input in a way that I was sort of expecting to see it, in a way that would make sense to me. And so I'm working with another student on some exercises, some meditations and some exercises where I'm asking and intending to see things as they actually are rather than as how I think they should be. Because, it's interesting, even though as a fully blind person, I've never seen color, my left brain has thoughts about what color should be. And I'm finding that as I, start to see in light, I'm finding that sometimes my brain will give me the light information in a way that I think I should see it. And then when it doesn't give me that, or when I start seeing things in a different way, then I start asking questions. And then people tell me, no, actually, orange is brighter than, blue. And then it's like, oh, well, okay, all right. I have new information. I have another piece of the jigsaw puzzle here.
Fantastic. So, John, before we get started into a little practice, would you have any advice for other blind or visually challenged folks if they become interested in this ability?
Well, you know, that's a bit of a tall order because I'm not sure if I'm talking to someone who has previously seen or not. I would say if you're totally blind and you've been totally blind since birth, come in with a clean slate. This is not as much about seeing in real time initially as it is about trusting your intuition. And I actually had a discussion with somebody who was total blind from birth, and he's very interested in this. And I said to him, because he was skeptical that he could see, as should everybody be, right? I mean, we hear claims all the time, and we need to evaluate that against real life. So I said to him, I said, okay, think of it this way, because he travels, he has orientation and mobility, and I said, think about it this way. Have you ever ducked out of the way because you knew something was at face level, like a tree or a branch or something? And, just as you duck, you feel the leaves graze the top of your forehead. And he said, yeah, I've done that. And I said, and you don't know how you knew to duck, but you just knew. And he said, yeah. I said, well, that's kind of what we're doing here. We're strengthening your intuition. At the start, we want you to get a good idea of what's around you through your intuition. And a lot of times it will manifest itself as just knowing. You don't know how you know, but you know. So imagine being able to look for something that you misplaced on your countertop, for example, or something that you dropped on the floor, like a little screw or something. Imagine being able to use your intuition and just knowing where that object is, or getting, like a spidey sense or a sixth sense, as they call it. That's how it's going to start. And if you're open enough to listen to that feedback, then it will show itself and reveal itself in other ways to you. And you may see a whole lot, and you might get a visual sense of the world. It might open up tactily for you. It might open up clairvoyant, or where you can hear the audio. And what I keep on saying to people is you've got to be open as possible, and have as few expectations as possible. You can certainly have preferences. You can prefer that you see the room or that you see uh, objects and things, but you know, having no actual expectation and allowing things to come through to you the way that makes sense for you is really key and really critical here. And that's what I do. Rob, just to parrot one of your phrases, I play games with it and I don't care what the outcome is. And the reason is because I know that I have other tools to accomplish the task in front of me. You know, if I drop something and I'm like, okay, well, where would this be? I can take a moment and just tune in and see where it is, or, try and see if I can open my mind sight a little bit and get a hazy idea of where it is. And if that doesn't happen, it's absolutely fine because I know how to look in circles for the objects around me, starting with smaller circles and getting bigger. This is not about upending your whole life overnight and replacing all that you know with this new foreign sense called vision. This is about overlaying what on top of your rich senses that you've accumulated over your life of not seeing. This is about overlaying that with some other sensations, including visual light.
Excellent, John. Now, John, I wondered if we could talk about this. This is an issue that has come up many times. I've heard over the years from other trainers in reference to teaching blind people to see, specifically people who are born blind. And I realize the paradigm is changing, but I wondered, since you were born blind, if you could talk about it. What I've heard many, many times is there are blind folks born blind who want to do this, have started into this, and such a sense of fear has overcome them because they're upending their world, or they feel they may be upending the world, that they actually discontinue this. And it's very sad for me to see that because, I know this ability works, and I've been witness to blind people that can see the room in real time. And it's
Hmm.
my vision and dream that every single person who is blind, whether born blind or has gone blind, has access to this ability. Whether they choose to carry on with it is their business, but I would like to see it made available to everybody. How would you address that fear issue that seems to overcome several born blind people that are starting into this and then maybe give up? How could they overcome that, John?
Well, the first thing is I will acknowledge that fear is real, okay? I would just acknowledge and tell them that I feel you because I had an incident that when I got back from Orlando, I was making soup in the kitchen and I had my bowl and I was coming into my dining room and all of a sudden there's a little cutout space between my kitchen and the dining room where there's a counter on the right like a little cutout, and then on the left there's a wall. And I had an instance occur where all of a sudden the wall on my left looked really, really, really huge. And it was interesting because one step it looked like I couldn't even really see the wall and I was far from it. And then the next step I took, it looked huge on my left side. And I got very disoriented because that wall was huge and it looked to me the same as if I would have been 3 inches away from it. And it was disconcerting because I didn't know where I was anymore. I felt disoriented and I kind of just had to stop, take a breath, take a moment, and then realize, like, okay, I know I'm by my counter on the right. I know that if I continue forward and do so slowly, I'm not going to hit that wall. And I even had to confirm by looking a little bit left or reaching out a little bit left with my, foot because I had my, I had my bowl in both hands, holding it level. And I just kind of had to breathe through it. So I will say sometimes the fear and what you observe radically changes from one moment to the next. And so you just have to kind of breathe through it. And, what you can do is you can use your other senses as well to kind of get, when you do start seeing things in light, you can use your other senses to get a sense of what is really going on. Um, and, that strategy is helpful. But the other strategy I would say is, you know, part of the fear, I think, comes from stigma that we have in the blind community because we've been told by well-meaning sighted people that, oh, when you start to see, your life will, really take off for you. Or, oh, when you see, you finally see, and there's a lot of tropes and stereotypes about, the blind leading the blind and being ignorant and things. And unfortunately, a lot of people, they've heard them for years and years and decades, even by the time they get to be adults. And there's always a nagging fear in the back of our minds as blind people, like, well, even though I dress well, and even though I know how to look at my audience when I'm talking, and even though, there still things that I'm not picking up on? Are there still things that make me look ignorant compared to what I would if I were sighted? Are there things that I, could have done better if I were sighted? And a lot of those fears, it's not about the fear of seeing light itself. It's a fear of, will I discover something when I start seeing? Will I discover something that makes, you know, that validates some of the things that have been told to me by sighted people, or by society at large? And what I would say to that is, you know, and then other people too, they're kind of afraid of the idea that they'd have to relearn the whole world around them. Oh my God, if I gain eyesight, I'd be a toddler, a little baby again. I'd have to relearn everything. And to assuage those fears, what I would say is, you know, first of all, when we say seeing, we say it very liberally. We don't mean just seeing with your eyes or seeing in the same way that a sighted person would. What we mean is you are conceptualizing or visualizing the world in a way that makes sense to you. And when you're meditating and when you're doing this practice of mindsight, you're basically allowing your intuition to guide you. So you're not getting the feedback from anywhere outside of you, and which is a blessing because your intuition will give you the feedback in a way that makes sense for you and a way that you can understand. So, for example, your intuition as a totally blind person, it knows that you're totally blind, right? I mean, it's lived your whole life with you. It's not outside of you. So your intuition is going to give you the feedback of visual things. It's going to give you that feedback in a way that you understand and that you have experience with by using one of your other senses, or maybe even by using your voice. And so it's really about increasing your awareness more than it is, at this point for me anyway, about seeing and having your whole world being predominantly overruled by this newfound sense of vision. It's not going to open up all at once, which is great because then it allows you to take some time and really get used to how it is manifesting for you now. And then you gradually can accommodate to it. You can get used to it. You can sort of figure out what it is you're seeing and then move from there.
Excellent. Now, John, my vision personally is to have a school where blind folk can come and
Hmm.
spend time there. So not just a seminar that's a week, but several weeks a person could come. And the idea would be that there would be sighted people there as well who
Sure.
are interested in learning this ability for whatever reason they choose. And it's my personal thought that one sort of supports the other. This is what I've seen already in our classes where we've had, the seminars where we've had blind folk and had sighted folk. When the sighted folk see and actually witness what is dynamically happening with the blind folk, it's very moving for the sighted people. I know I was moved and I looked around the room and the odd person had water in their eyes. I mean, when certain things happened for the blind people, it really is, well, in our mind, it's almost miraculous to witness this in real time. And then I'm not a blind person, but I would maybe think that also having the sighted people there that are, maybe they're opening faster, but it gives a certain level of support to the blind people. It almost seems to me, and what I feel is that one helps the other.
Sure. So I would say two things about this. Um, I think the phenomenon of group consciousness is real. So when you have people starting to open up, you change the expectation of the entire group. And when it becomes expected that other people are going to open, or when it becomes, let's say, second nature or just natural, then more people start to open and more people start to feel confident that, like, okay, well, if these other people have opened and they can do it, so can I. And that kind of helps at a subconscious level, I think, too, where people don't necessarily even think about it, but they just realize, like, okay, these other people are seeing in real time, and it gives them permission to open up too. So, having sighted people working with blind people, that's a very cool thing. And what it also does is it creates a shared experience where if you go into this and you come out having more awareness than you did before, the sighted people know exactly what you're talking about because you're telling them like, okay, I'm aware of these things now that I wasn't aware of before. I think there is still something to keep in mind, however, and that is, at least for me, when a blind person starts to show awareness or they start to open, um, they may not necessarily be seeing in the same way as a sighted person would. And so one of the things that I liked what you did in Orlando is I liked it when you said, can you explain to us how you know that a square is a square or how you know what color it is? And what that allows for, it kind of allows the blind person to express what they're thinking and sort of give give some insight into how do they know what they know. And that also opens up other sighted people because if they're not seeing in real time, but they're getting feelings or they're getting just a sense of stronger intuition or they're seeing an outline or part of the shape, that, the experience from the blind people will help the sighted people as well because it's helpful to hear that, oh, somebody is not exactly seeing like they would with their eyes. Okay, well, maybe I don't have to see like I could with my eyes. And then that kind of opens them up too, expands their mind, you know?
Exactly. Now, John, another thing I've run into, I wondered if you could talk about from your point of view, is this idea of karma, almost a fatalistic view. I've run into this several times with folks that are blind from birth, almost a victim mentality or a giving up that, well, it's my karma to go through life blind. I'm sorry. I have to accept that. For me, it's very disconcerting to hear that kind of talk. I could see where people could believe that. But, once again, I'm not blind. I wondered if you could talk about that from your point of view and your experience in your life, working with other blind people, because this is a very powerful thing that could stand in the way of somebody or not.
Well, okay, so I would answer that in two different ways. Um, the giving up thing, again, I understand to a degree where people are coming from. Here in the United States, there's an 80% unemployment rate amongst those who are capable and competent and happen to be blind. We got a long way to go in terms of making the whole world accessible. There's a lot of kiosks and touchscreens that don't have any accessibility. There's I mean, in the neighborhood I live right now, there's not transit. You can go north and south on a bus, but you can't go east to west. And so I understand the idea of thinking that the world is against you, in a sense. Um, it's interesting because I've heard too that when people are born blind, depending on your spiritual beliefs, there's life choices, right? And you might make the choice to come into a body, to incarnate into a body that has a visual impairment. But my answer to you would be two things. Number one, we don't know how much vision you will or won't get from this exercise. So as a result, it might be that your life path just involves increasing your intuition. So look at it this way. If you go to these games, this vision without eyes, and you increase your awareness through a better sense, a stronger sense of intuition, isn't that still a win? It might be that you made a life choice to be blind, but if you gain better intuition, isn't that still a win? Or let's say that you gain the ability to discern colors tactily, like I have. You're still technically blind because your eyes don't physically work, but isn't it still a win? I mean, having more information and being able to choose it to use it however you wish, that's the real end game here. However that information shows up, let it. And I would also remind you that the choice you make today doesn't necessarily have to be the choice you make tomorrow. We are souls that are on Earth with a certain degree of free will. And so if you feel like you have learned lessons from being blind, and let's not make any mistake, being blind can be a very powerful tool. It's not just a curse, it's not just an awful thing. Certainly from being blind, I've learned how to communicate very well with others. Certainly, from being blind, I've learned the skill of patience because you're not always going to be able to do what you want when you want because you want, right? And I've learned, different strokes for different folks. You have to allow people to be different to run the world. And as a result of sometimes not knowing, to put this bluntly, you know, in social situations, there have been times when I've talked to people that maybe I wouldn't have if I had seen their physical appearance. But I know now that, I've gotten to talk to them and had some really deep conversations, and it's really changed me in a profound way. But I'm also of the belief that we as humans are meant to grow and we're meant to expand our possibilities. And so, when you start getting to a mindset of, well, I'm blind and this is just how it is, that's just the way it is, you could potentially be limiting your growth. And, maybe your life path is not to become, an artist that paints with watercolors and sees all the details, but, your life path um, might include just constantly expanding your awareness, constantly expanding yourself, your capabilities, and what you know yourself to be capable of. And I certainly don't think that we are precluded from any of that as a result of being born blind.
Exactly. And John, so thank you very much for all this. I'm really hoping that some of the things that you've shared can give some folks in the blind community some motivation to push forward with what they're actually capable of. I mean, yes, they may have been born blind, but they have also been born with this ability. Every single person has this God-given ability. And if we have it, why shouldn't we develop it? So I really appreciate the time that you spent with me here this morning talking about all these things from your point of view.
Yeah, and the biggest thing, Rob, is just to, come into this open-minded. Don't have a lot of expectations. Don't worry that your world is going to disappear overnight or be upended overnight because it takes time. And it's also, I liken it to, the universe or your higher self or God. They have grace. And what I mean by that is, when you start to see things in real time, or when you start to perceive things tactily or otherwise, you're going to notice it, but it's not going to be at a level that's so overwhelming that it inundates all the other senses all the rest of the day. It's going to come and go. And as a result, you're going to be able to choose to a certain degree how much you pay attention to it. And as a result, you can very much continue living your normal life as a blind person, even as you work on these skills. So, I mean, think of this process of getting information from yourself as working with the most graceful, most patient, most nice teacher you've ever thought of, and then multiply that by 10.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, John. Would you like to move into a little practice session at this point?
Yeah, let's try it, Rob. I haven't meditated or done anything this morning, but we'll give it a go. And I will see if I'm going to put my mask on, but I will also see how well I do with it off too, just
Sure.
as a comparison. And you can see here in the camera, oh dear, you can see I've got the mindfold adjusted. I have a big nose, so there's a little gap there, but you can see it's fully covering my, eyes.
Absolutely. Okay, well, let's get started, John. So, like always, the idea is to get relaxed and let
Mhm.
go. And, we've been talking for the last while, and of course, that does stimulate the left brain. And it also, there is information that comes through from your right brain as we're, working through ideas that we're talking about. So it's not all left brain. But in order to open up our mindsight, we want to try at the very least to get balanced. So move into that in between state where we're working our left and right brain simultaneously and equally. And even, ideally move more into the right brain, but, you know, that's higher up on the wish list. So I would encourage you to just get relaxed and let go and just let go of all the thoughts we've been talking about. They're all recorded, so we have them, they're not lost. So we can now let go of all that and just enjoy the fact that we're here and now and in this exact moment, interacting with each other as two human beings, right in the moment, right? Synchronistically, spontaneously, right in this moment, in the here and now. And to operate mindsight, that is the kind of state of mind we want to be in, just in the here and now, not worrying about the next minute, not worrying about the past few minutes or the past hour or anything past. All we really have anyway is just in the moment, in our existence, but we project into the future and we remember the past. But let's just be in the here and now, John, and we'll get relaxed. And I encourage you to take a few slow, deep breaths. Okay, so all the way in and all the way out. And as you continue to take control of your breath, there's some physiological things that happen here. When you take control of your breath, that fight or flight response slows right down. Also, your heart rate slows down, your blood pressure reduces. I know even in the past, many people, myself included, white coat syndrome, you go in for a doctor appointment where the nurse is going to measure your blood pressure and heart rate, and you get nervous and your heart starts pounding. Well, of course, your blood pressure goes up, your heart rate goes up. So many of us have experienced that. But I've also experienced where the nurse will say, look, just take your time, breathe slow. They already know, knowledge wise and intuitive wise, that if they can get their patient to just take control of their breathing and breathe slow, that will bring their heart rate down to normal or close to normal. It will bring their blood pressure down close to normal. So, the nurses already know this works. They employ it all the time with their patients. It's not like you want a unrealistically low reading. You really would just like a normal reading from this patient, not a white coat syndrome reading. So just continue to breathe slow and let go. When we say let go, it really means let go of the thoughts of the left brain. Of course, these thoughts will occur to you, and that is completely normal. That's why we have a left brain and we do our thinking. But I would encourage you to let go of the thoughts, John. Any thoughts that occur to you, just let them be on their way. And this is also why it's a good way to practice with somebody else, because you can let go and let them be the director. When you practice on your own, in some cases, it can be a little more difficult because you are directing everything or can be directing everything from your left brain. So I would encourage everybody to get a partner, whether in person or online, because this is where you can let go and just trust that the other person will say and do things intuitively that will help you open their mindsight. And that is exactly what happens. So I encourage you to let go of the thoughts. If you have any thoughts that occur or come into your brain, just let them be on their way. No different than, you're looking out over the lake or the ocean and you see a ship going by. You don't have to get involved with that. You can just watch it go across and disappear out of sight. So it's great if you don't want to get involved with these thoughts if possible, but you don't want to push them away either. If you try to push them away, it's like a friendly neighbor coming to your door and you're very rude to them and send them away because you're busy. Say, I don't want to talk to you. I'm busy with something. Well, you know what? As soon as you close the door, they're going to knock on their door and say, John, why are you being so rude to me? And they will insist on you give an explanation why you're sending them away. So, in some ways, our left brain can be a similar thing. You want to allow the thoughts to just move away quietly and gently. Just like if your neighbor comes to the door and you're busy, that's your left brain, you would say, I'm just busy for the moment. Come on back in an hour. Come on over for coffee. We'll get all caught up on everything, and I'll be happy to spend time with you then. And even if we say things like this to our left brain, it works. It's not that we want to rebuke the left brain, we just want to gently, politely, and quietly usher it away. And then it will understand that you're not ignoring it completely. You will re engage at a later time and value everything that the left brain will give. And when the left brain understands that, it has no problem going away and doing its own thing. So continue to breathe slow. And if you do get thoughts coming in, just let them go, but don't push them away. So you don't want to engage with them, but you don't want to push them away either. You just gently usher them away. And let's just get real quiet, breathe slow. And in a moment, I'm just going to hold something up, John, and maybe we'll start with the symbols. I'm just going to grab one of the 7 symbols and I'm going to put it in your screen.
Let me look forward here.
Okay.
See what I
And
can see.
is in your screen. And remember, there's no pressure here. I have the power of editing videos. And even if you feel under pressure and
Whoa.
don't have things happening, we don't include this as part of our interview. I never
Okay.
want anyone to feel under pressure of any kind, John. So
No,
let's
I get you, Rob. Let's see. So I'm going to look all the way to I'm trying to figure out where my window is.
just let go and go empty.
I think I get it. Okay. I think I know what I'm looking at here. Hold on a second.
Okay.
There we go. All right. Do you see it, Rob?
Okay, that's it, John. You got it. Well done. Very good. Congratulations on getting that. Now, explain how you saw that or felt that, John.
So what I can do, and you might have seen me, do this, right? Real close to the screen. Um, and I know that mindsight doesn't have any, it doesn't have any limit to how close or how far, but I have this habit of even before I had mindsight, I would put my head really close to things when I was looking at it with my actual eyes. And so I think it's partly conforming to my expectation here. But what I did, Rob, is I kind of put my head close to the screen and then I looked a little bit off to my left and a little bit off to my right. And as I was looking, I saw the like I saw the outline. I saw it like this. I saw on the left side I saw an outline, and then on the right side I saw an outline. And then I was like, okay, where are the edges or where is the top of it? And I tried looking a little bit up and I couldn't see any line or any corner or any edge. And I noticed that it got a little bit lighter gradually. It just kind of curved. And then I was like, oh, okay, that's the circle. But it's interesting because I'll take my hand and just trace it. It's like I saw this right here
Mhm.
and I saw this right here. I saw these two lines and I saw the spot in between that looked different in terms of light and dark. But what I didn't see is I didn't see the whole circle. So I kind of had to move my head. And then I saw that this line was gradually getting like, as I moved, it was gradually getting like, um, it was gradually changing, but it wasn't curving. It wasn't like it stopped directly. And
Okay.
so I would say I saw from about here to there as I moved my head and from about there to there, but I didn't see the full shape of the circle.
Yeah, and this is quite common, especially at the intuitive level.
No, I know. I'm just giving you a video symbol. Like I'm just giving you on video what I saw.
Fantastic. Okay, John, let's go with one of the colored dice. It's in your screen.
Okay, I'm going to put my head closer to it.
Okay, it's filling your whole screen. So feel
It
free to move close, move back.
is, but where is the thing at here? Okay,
The color.
so hold on.
Mhm.
Uh, oh boy. Okay, all right. So let me do a color flash here and see what color it is. Okay, this, Rob, would be like a blue dice.
Okay, try
And
again, John. Try again.
all right, and
Yep.
let's see. I'm going to go with the number first. So this is the number.
Okay, you're seeing half of the number, John. So those numbers would be this like one line of the two. So this is quite common in six. When there's six on the dice, many times people will see the one line of three. That is the number right there. You got it. Okay, so what is the color?
All right,
What
let me do another
one
flash
does it
here and see if I can
match
get
with?
it.
Okay, and which one does it match with?
Um, you know what? I'm going to say on closer inspection, it looks kind of like yellow.
Yes, it is. Well done, John. It is yellow. Excellent. Okay, now let me find something else. Would you like to try one of the letters?
Suppose so.
Okay. Would you like black on white background or white on black background?
Oh boy. I'm gonna have to play with this one. I think if we have the black background, it'll make the letter. No, I think if we have the white background and we have the black of the letter, it'll stand out better. I see things that are darker better against the light. So let's do it that way.
Okay. Now I'm going to pick two letters here for your screen. I'm just finding where the letter is that I want to have. Okay, I've got one of the letters already, and the other appears not to be in my pile. Okay, so I'm going to use a different letter, but I'm going to have two letters, John, and I'm
Okay.
putting them in the screen. So there's two,
Yep.
any
Let's
one
see.
of the 26. So I'm going to ask if you can see one or the other or both. There's
So it's interesting because the left side of the screen, um, I'm getting sort of an intuitive hit on it, but it looks like there's a point at the top of that left letter. I'm gonna guess, Rob, that the one on the left is an A.
okay. Now, you know what? I'm going to give that to you. It's an H, but if you take an H and you push the two lines together at the top, what does that become, John?
That's the A.
That's the A. So at the intuitive level, this is what we see all the time. So very good on that. Excellent, John. I'll take that out of the screen and leave the other one in the screen now.
Okay, so let me go ahead and look at this other one. Um, oh my goodness, I don't see it at all. Hold on.
Okay, now just hold your head still for a second, and I'm going to move at this end just to give a little bit of motion in your screen. Okay, I'm moving it, and now I will stop it. Okay, so you continue with what you would like to do at that end, John.
Wait, so this looks like, oh boy, where is that going? Hold on.
Go empty, just completely let go, and take the
Oh,
attitude you don't care, John.
so it kind of looks like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, Rob. Hold on. I'm gonna, because it almost looks like an L, Rob, but I'm gonna go with an I because it seems like, yeah, I'm just gonna go with an I.
Okay, try again, John. Try one more time, and then we'll switch and go on to something else.
Okay.
And in the same way, when I was learning my intuitive level, it comes and goes like waves on the ocean.
It does.
Well, and we've both experienced that where one moment you can be 100% accurate, the next moment you can't see it for love nor money, it's gone. But over time, it gets stronger and stronger.
This one has something in the middle of it, Rob. So it's interesting because I'm not seeing anything at the top or the bottom, but there's like a middle, like there's like a circle portion in the middle with a hole cut out of it.
Okay, John, what would
Hold
that
on.
be? What would that be?
That would be like uh
Just say what it is. If it's, well, it actually is exactly the way you described. It is a full circle. It's an O. So it is the C that you're showing, but just complete that open spot. It is the O or zero, which was exactly what you were describing, circular with a cutout circle in the middle. You got it,
and I
John.
just want to point out to people, if they're seeing this, I did have to take a second guess, but you still, if you look at it, I mean, that, if I was just guessing, then I wouldn't even be in the ballpark and I would have to try, 26 different guesses to get this.
You got it. You got it. Well, let's try one more now, John. I'm going to switch to the letters that are white on black.
Got it?
For many people, they find them easier because in the darkness of their visual field under the mask, everything's dark. So
Right?
the white shows up. So I will take one card, move the others away, and I'm moving this one into your screen. It's one of the 26 letters.
Oh, that's like an M, isn't it, Rob?
I try again. Try again. Okay, I'll start by moving it in your screen just to create some
No, no,
motion.
no, leave it alone. Leave it alone
Okay,
because I'm trying to figure out where this
still,
is. Oh man.
just go empty. Remember, when we take the attitude we don't care, the mind
Right.
can come wandering out. Caring is a left brain thing in this context. So, who
Yeah, see,
cares?
I'm seeing just a whole blob of light right now, and the whole screen looks like just one blob of light. Hold on. Got to get it together.
Take your time, John. Go empty. Breathe slow. At any time during any practice session, it's always good for the participant to just take control of their breath and slowly breathe in and out. And that completely relaxes you. When you're relaxed, the things of the right brain can come through. So even in through the nose and out through the mouth. Breathe slow. And
Hmm.
even do things like wiggle your toes. As silly as it sounds, it is a distraction. And when you're momentarily distracted, the right brain can come through. It's the same as distracting mom when she brings the cookies out of the oven and you want one. Hey, mom, what's that out the window? She looks and you grab the cookie and run.
There we go.
Okay, try one more time. Try one more time, John.
Got it, I think.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to tell you it's an X. It's an X. Okay. Now, we'll go back to the other ones that are black on white. It could very well be in your case, those are easier to see. So we're going to try
It
one
could
more
be.
letter. I'm going to find one here, John. And let's see what it is. Here it is right here. It's in your screen. It's one of the
There it is.
letters. It's white on black.
Yep. Now, where is that? Oh, I see where the white is, and I can see I'm seeing a straight line on the top that goes horizontally from left to right. I'm seeing hold on.
So it's
Where does
black
that go?
on white. Now, the horizontal line, you may be seeing the top of the card, John.
That would make sense. Um,
Completely let go.
yeah.
Go empty. Take the attitude you don't care. Doesn't matter. Who cares? We just got to get you laughing. If we can
There
get
you
you
go.
laughing, then you will connect directly and deeply to your right brain. Even smiling works, John. So give me a big smile.
There you go.
Okay. When you smile, and you can pick this up on various levels, you can feel what the letter is. You know, your senses, some of your other senses are a little more finely tuned than a sighted person. So you can combine all these senses with your mindsight. In fact, at the intuitive level, that's what mindsight is. It's a combination of all of these different senses and feelings, not just the visual. Go empty.
Big. Ah, aha, Rob. Got it. Check this out. Ready?
Okay.
It is this letter right here.
Well, you know what? You've shown a J, and when
Right.
the J comes around and goes back up again, if you continue that up, that's what this is. It's the V. Okay, so that is legitimate, John. That is legitimate. Remember that sometimes the mindset will only see part and then it will interpret. So if you were to take part of the one side of the V away and have it appear more hazily, it would show up as a J. Okay, so let's go with player's choice here. What would you like the game to be?
So let me put this letter back here.
Okay,
But, for right now, well, let's do playing cards.
okay,
And in this case, what I'm trying to do is just get the black or red color correct for
okay.
starters.
All right, so let's do that. I'm going to shuffle the playing cards and I'm going to reach into the middle and grab one. It's in your screen, John.
All
So
right, I'm going to do a color flash here.
start with, is it black or red?
Okay, and that one would be a black one.
Okay, it's the other one. So
It's
this,
red.
yeah, it's red. Now, there is the value in the corner right there where I'm tapping my finger.
Hmm.
There's a value in the
Now
bottom.
this one, I want people to know this one I don't see the numbers quite yet. So this one I'm doing from intuitive, okay?
Okay, it could be anything from two to ace, John, any of the
Yes, it
13.
could.
Now, do you see or feel the suit?
Yes, I do. And I was actually looking for it, Rob, and I found the card that I actually think this is a heart, but I'm the number. This time I'm going for the number.
Okay, now it is a heart. Now, I will tell you there is a loose association between what you've shown and what's here. It's an ace. Now, an ace has, if you would close the bottom, you could loosely say an ace was an eight. If you opened up the top a bit and closed the bottom. Okay, let's do one more player's choice, John. And remember,
All
we
right, so
don't care at all.
this one we're gonna do the symbols again here.
Okay, all right. And what would you like the game to be?
Um, just just show me one of the symbols and we'll just go from there.
Okay, let me grab one. There it is. It's in your screen, John.
Okay, I'm gonna look forward a little bit. Well, I see the light in the middle of the lines. Okay, I'm not gonna question this too much. I'm just gonna go with it. This would be, this is the plus.
Now, John, you got it. It is the plus. It's the closed plus, but nevertheless, it's the plus. So well done on that.
Now, let
Fantastic.
me show you what I saw. Okay, this isn't a case where I got the lines. So, Rob, I saw this line, the one going vertically, and I saw this line, and I saw a little bit of light in between those. Now, I know that when it's a closed plus, it should look darker between those lines, but this is an example of where, I saw the two lines and I saw that they were very little space in between them. To me, it doesn't matter if it's light or dark in between those two lines, just because, like, and sometimes I am able to, the closed plus looks darker than the open plus does. Um, but in this case, I didn't quite see it fully dark in between the lines, but I definitely saw these two lines here and here.
Well, John, you got it. It was a plus, so fantastic on that. And remember, there's 8 different symbols to choose from. Do you want to
And
try
do you
one
want,
more, and then we'll wrap things up?
okay, and so for this one, Rob, what we'll do is we'll do the dice again.
Okay.
Um, in this case, I'm just going to go and see, I'm going to really challenge myself and see if I can get the number right.
Okay. All right. Let me find something here. I have a dice in your screen, John. There's a color to it. There's a number of dotted dots. Now, remember, as when I was doing the intuitive level mindsight, it's not just the number of dots, it's the pattern of how they have put them on the dice that can be
Right.
also. For
This
example,
is the number 5.
that is 5 in your screen, yeah. And what is the actual one that's showing in your screen?
Let's see here.
Go completely empty.
Whoa, okay, Y, 3.
I'm going to move my finger across. You might see something moving. I'm moving my finger
I
across.
see him on a diagonal, Rob. I think it's the
Yeah.
3.
Yes, John. Well done. Fantastic. Okay, we're finished our session today. So, John, thank you so much for having this interview and being frank and personal about your experience. Very much appreciated. And I'm sure this will help a lot of people in the blind and vision impaired community understand what you're going through in your journey
Right.
towards vision without eyes.
Yeah, and again, Rob, I'll close with my best line. This is not about immediately becoming sighted overnight. This is not about seeing in light like everybody else. This is about a greater knowing for yourself and a greater trusting of yourself to get the information in a way that makes sense to you. And so I liken it as, another tool in the toolbox. And, if it should happen that I see more than lines and silhouettes in the future, I'm certainly open to it. But if it should happen that I become more tactily aware of things that you can traditionally only see, I'm aware to that. I'm open to that as well. I would just encourage those people who are listening to be skeptical but not cynical, to come in with an open mind and to really trust yourself to give you the information in any way that makes sense for you at the moment.
Thank you so much, John.
You're welcome.